My name is Carlton Ely. I live in Washington, D.C. I'm an urban planner by training, and I realize today that many planners and allied professionals are interested in the topic of equity, whether it's referred to as design justice or public interest design or community-driven planning. But I just need to share that although I work on this topic currently, I wasn't born an expert on this issue. In this 2 years that I was in graduate school, we probably only had 2 weeks worth of academic discussion about this particular topic. I do recall that when I was in graduate school, we were provided the APA JAPA issue from 1994 that revisited the topic of equity at that time. And so that turned me on and really got me interested in the topic. But when I left graduate school, I left with a degree in one hand and an unanswered question in the other about how to address social equity and planning at the same time. And so really it became a pursuit over the span of the past 20 years in order to learn more and to become more proficient as a practitioner in order to correct for what I felt was a major deficit. Randall Arndt is a landscape planner. And one of the things that he often says is that planners should observe, record, communicate, and self-educate. And really that's what I've been doing over the span of the past 20 years is simply taking advantage of the opportunity to write academic articles. But again, it was really about making an investment in myself in order to compensate for the things that I didn't learn in an academic setting. Sometimes it was through the process of networking, whether it be through divisions within the American Planning Association, such as the Planning and the Black Community Division. Sometimes it was working with allied professionals like the National Organization of Minority Architects. All of this was really part of me immersing myself further and deeper into a space that I felt would be helpful for me. Environmental justice is a lever that can be used when attempting to address and correct or remedy some of the problems that may be happening in communities that are underserved, under-resourced, or overburdened by pollution. The reality is that these two issues are not mutually exclusive. We have to understand that. We have to rise above the semantics. And so that's really what has been interesting from my perspective as a practitioner is trying to figure out how to make sure that we work across the silos, figuring out how to make sure that we don't talk past one another when the reality is that these issues are not mutually exclusive and that there is a lot of connectivity between them. And so for any student or even young professional who wants to pursue working on issues of social justice in planning or equity in planning or environmental justice in planning, I think the most important thing for one to consider is the importance of just jumping in. I realize that working on these issues can be uncomfortable, but embrace the discomfort because it's actually natural, but we don't grow, we don't mature until we actually challenge ourselves. But in terms of resources that may be useful for you as you walk down this path, I mean, again, we're fortunate because there's so many resources that are now accessible and are online. So, for example, take into consideration pulling up or downloading the 1994 spring issue of JAPA that did focus on the issue of equity. And although it is an older document, what you will find if you read some of the articles is that many of the questions that people were raising then are the same questions that people are raising now. Another good resource that will be useful for persons who have an interest in this topic is actually a report that was prepared by the National Environmental Justice Advisory Council in 1996. The title of the document is Urban Revitalization, Environmental Justice in Brownfields, The Search for Authentic Signs of Hope. We're very pleased that they took the time to do that particular work because it's a good public record. Also, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency published a report on collaborative problem solving in 2007 on the environmental justice collaborative problem solving model. Often persons may have questions about where do I begin, how do I navigate this space, how do I work with different parties. Obviously, different groups may have different perspectives or orientations in terms of what they want to see or achieve. And really what this particular report is useful is the fact that it helps to synthesize very clearly through 7 steps what are the type of actions that should occur when you're involved in a process that includes a number of stakeholders who may not necessarily see things the same way, but obviously collaboration is important in order to achieve or realize better, more sustainable outcomes and results.